All right, folks, we're on the live stream talking Miami football tonight on a Wednesday night postseason with Cam Underwood from State of the U. So, again, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking college football each and every day. And we are talking Canes, and we've got the live chat up and running. So we will pass on your comments and questions if they're intelligent on to Cam. Cam, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, feel good, feel strong. So yeah, let's have some fun.
Manny Diaz. All right, so he's in place, and then it's all on him to assemble his staff, and that's got to be an interesting, but also for an alpha male, which you got to assume a guy that reaches this type of position wants to have that kind of control, that I'm going to finally get to handpick the guys that I want on a coaching staff and really tailor make this staff to individuals that I believe can coach and instruct and recruit and work with me, and we can build a winner. That must be one of the more strenuous tasks, but at the same time, maybe one of the more fulfilling, to have that kind of power and control to start to build the program and implement a philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing, but challenging, definitely. Miami had some failings on offense that need to be rectified, and that's really where the hires are going to be. There was only one opening on the defensive staff, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but hiring only one coach versus hiring 5 on the opposite side of the ball than your expertise, and the side of the ball that needs rebuilding, like from the ground up reconstruction, obviously that's going to be a little bit challenging. So yeah, Manny Diaz is able to build the staff as he sees fit. He was able to bring in defensive coaches that help to propagate his paradigm, for the Miami Hurricanes. And obviously over the last couple of seasons, we've seen that be, a profitable kind of engagement, because Miami's defense has been very, very good, a championship caliber. The offense, however, has let things kind of down. So yeah, Manny Diaz in his first time as a head coach, obviously, he's in his 40s, so he's not like, 26 and getting his first shot. Like, he's been around the block a couple of times, and he has an idea of what he wants. And definitely on offense, like I said on here before, Manny said that he wants to be not necessarily spread, but innovative and cutting edge, and getting the playmakers that Miami has the ball in space. So you can kind of take that as you will, but yeah, getting the people, the coaches on that side of the ball with that philosophy and with the skill to instruct it and coach it and execute it the right way. It is not a daunting task, but I mean, that is the hires on offense are going to dictate Manny Diaz's success here at Miami. So yeah, it is a little bit of a tall task, but I think that he's up to the task. And there's been a lot of other first-time coaches that have done great things in the world of college football. Even, just recently, you think Lincoln Riley, you think Dabo Swinney, you think Kirby Smart, Jeremy Pruitt over at Tennessee. He hired, a guy away, Jim Chaney away from Georgia just now. He's gotten a couple 5-star recruits recently. So there are first-time coaches who are ready for the moment. Like, you can be an assistant for a long enough time and be ready to step up to the big chair. And I think that's Manny Diaz, but obviously we need to see these hires and see what happens on the field. But yeah, that process of building a staff is the thing that he's focused on.
And for a guy that achieved the success that you just outlined on that side of the football, to have players that he developed, so he's not going somewhere new, he's coming back to where he was, and then to have 2 coaches take over as co-defensive coordinators who obviously worked with him. They didn't completely work with him.
No.
Neither one of them.
Well, no. The thing is, they both, everybody who's on the defensive staff has worked with Manny Diaz before, but we have a defensive coordinator and then a which is really kind of assistant, but we do have like a head person in the hierarchy, in the structure. Which is why when Manny Diaz was asked at his introductory presser, like, hey, what are the titles and responsibilities of all the defensive coaches? He was like, we'll see, because, and lots of people properly surmised that his reticence to delineate the duties of the defensive staff was because he was going to bring in somebody else to be defensive coordinator. And that's exactly what he did in hiring Blake Baker away from Louisiana Tech. Blake Baker is my age, well, a little bit younger than me, but we were in college at the same time, 2004. He played linebacker. I sang in choir and ran around and did other kind of stuff at a different school. But Blake Baker, he's been defensive coordinator at Louisiana Tech for a couple of years. He was a grad assistant at Texas when Manny Diaz was the defensive coordinator in 2011 and 12. He was also an assistant at Louisiana Tech under Manny Diaz as defensive coordinator before Diaz left Louisiana Tech to go to Mississippi State. So Blake Baker is a guy who has grown up in the coaching ranks around Manny Diaz. And if you look at Louisiana Tech's recent defense, they've been outstanding. They've been dynamic and diverse. They've had a couple first-round draft pick caliber guys, a defensive tackle previously, and then Jalen Ferguson this year, 6'5", 262 defensive end. And he's now the all-time career leading sacker in NCAA history, playing in Blake Baker's defense. So this is a guy who learned that same system and then kept it going at a good level at Louisiana Tech. Obviously, you're going to have some of the restrictions of talent at Louisiana Tech, so you're not going to have a top 2, top 3 defense. But in some areas, the Blake Baker defense at Louisiana Tech was as good as, if not better than, Manny Diaz's defense here at Miami. So when you step up to the big leagues now in terms of talent across the board, you can have Jalen Ferguson at Louisiana Tech, who, his freshman year, I think, had 13 and a half sacks or something. Like, he was, woefully underrated, obviously, by being the career leading sacker now in NCAA history. But you have one of those guys. You have a pair of safeties who could be mid to late round NFL draft picks and make a name for themselves in the league. But you go from that, where you have 3, maybe 4 guys who are NFL caliber, to having all the NFL caliber guys you could ever want at Miami. So, and you're going to have consistency of scheme. That's the real big thing. You're not bringing in somebody from the outside to do something new and different on defense. You're bringing in one of your former right-hand man who took over your job when you left Louisiana Tech, stayed there for a few years, made a name for himself running that same defense or his version thereof, and then you bring him in and you put him with co-defensive coordinator Ephraim Banda. But Blake Baker is going to call the defensive plays. That has been stated. So the co-defensive coordinator name or title is really just so that we can pay Banda more to stay here. Jonathan Patke, he's no longer co-defensive coordinator. He's your outside linebackers and special teams coach. Oh, and also, by the way, Blake Baker's coaching inside linebackers. So you have Manny Diaz replacing himself on a direct level. Defensive coordinator, linebackers coach, boom, that's Blake Baker. Defensive line coach, Jess Simpson is still going to be associate head coach as well as defensive line coach. And then Ephraim Banda, like I said, co-defensive coordinator and these coaching safeties. And then Mike Rump, a former first-round NFL draft pick from the University of Miami, played cornerback, coaches cornerbacks, and he does a pretty good job of it. So those are your 5 hires or 5 coaches on the defensive side of the ball to go along with Manny Diaz as your head coach.
Cam Underwood on the line with us from State of the U. So that's your destination for Miami football coverage. And if you love the Canes and love the university on the entire sports scene, that's the place to be, as well as we get into ACC basketball. How are the Canes doing on the hard court?
Pretty bad, honestly. Injuries. We kicked a kid off who was a transfer who averaged 15 or 16 points a game as a freshman, sat out last year. He was in the upper, in the eastern, way up northeast there in some northeastern conference, but stepping up, and then he got booted off the team. He was going to play big minutes. Dewan Hernandez changed his name from Hewell to Hernandez. He's ineligible according to the NCAA for the corruption case, even though all of the evidence against Miami was unsubstantiated, and the prosecutor at the at the hearing wanted, and they redacted Miami from the I don't even know what it's called, but Miami was on the list of teams with an infraction, and the prosecutor said redact that, get rid of that. We cannot prove any of that. That is not factual. But the NCAA has still suspended Hernandez, who was Miami's best player. And Miami doesn't have a lot of size. So when you lose a guy who's, 6'11", and, 220, 230, that matters. Dengok, redshirt freshman, playing very well. He tore up a knee. Rodney Miller, who's a 7-footer, also, he's redshirting this year. So Miami only has 7 scholarship players right now. And, got some good guys. Zach Johnson's a 1,500-point career scorer over from Florida Gulf Coast, who went to Miramar, where I used to work, and then transferred to Miami Norland, won a couple championships there. But he's a bucket getter. Chris Likes, he was player of the year in the conference in Washington, D.C. as a junior when Markel Fultz was a 5-star recruit senior at DeMatha Prep. Chris Likes was voted a better high school basketball player. So he has that kind of talent. But when you only have 7 guys, it's really tough. And the everything is just really limited. Shooting is very good, but, limited size, ball handling, if it's not going to be Johnson or Likes, kind of struggles. Defense, better, but, they go cold for a lot of time. So unfortunately, Miami basketball is probably going to be under 500 this year, but these things happen.